I would like to give the floor to our first presenter, Mr. Kwangchul Ji from South Korea Ministry of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. My name is Kwangchul Ji, as introduced, and from Ministry of Finance. Actually, I am a policy maker, and so my presentation this afternoon will be about Korea's policy directions and the situations in Korea about green finance. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to introduce to you the green finance in Korea. My division, in fact, in charge of work related to climate finance, including UNFCCC negotiations and the GCF cooperation. Today, I would like to talk especially about mobilizing resources for the climate resilient infrastructure. Before my presentation, before start, I'd like to point out two things. First, from yesterday, the discussions and the seminars, workshops focused more on demand side, I think, but my presentation may be more focused on supply side because we are mobilizing finances for climate change. And second thing is the resources mobilized in Korea, especially the utilization of resources may not be directly linked to the climate resilient infrastructure. Maybe because that's the supply perspective, the Korea's government policies may direct the resources, and the companies which you use will they move based on their incentives too. So it's a kind of so the results may be more focused on mitigation, but less adaptation areas. Okay, as you see here, I will explain very briefly about Korea's the institutional framework or the system, or public finance and private finance capital markets. And for the last part, I would like to share some with you a few issues that we can discuss practically for better improve the green finance for climate resilient infrastructure. This is the overview, and let's skip this one here. First, the institutional framework. There are diverse system or institutions to encourage green finance in Korea. I want to draw your attention to these three institutional frameworks in particular. First, the green certification system was created to attract private resources to green industries in line with the Low Carbon Green Growth Act. If it is possible to check whether a particular technology or enterprise or project pertains to the green sector. And companies that are green certified are given benefits such as preferential interest rate for loans or exceptions to loan limits by public financial institutions in Korea. The public financial institutions, I mean, they are public banks, whose main shareholders are Korean governments. So they usually support the Korean government's policies. So it's kind of easy for the public side to lead the financial resources to move toward that direction. And green management disclosure program is also to stimulate investment in green companies by making public the information whether they are green certified. And green financial information system is a kind of online platform, sharing the diverse information. So these information institutional frames serve as the basis for effective operation of green finance in Korea. Now let's move to here. Public finance. When I say public finance, public finance may mean like national finance, but here there are many meanings. Here I mean that the nature of the climate change sector, public finance is essential for bringing in private finance. So in particular, private investment is very slow for a climate resilient infrastructure investments where the demand for adaptation projects is very high. So therefore, I think the public sector must take the lead in increasing investment and make favorable conditions for private investment. Currently, Korea, the government and the public financial institutions are utilizing diverse financial instruments to engage actively in green finance, like public fund, some government ministries and public financial institutions made some funds for public purposes and favorable interest rate loans or guarantee and insurances. And besides this, Korean government provides with public finance, national finance, for ODA, offshore development aid, which amounts around $30 billion, about 0.2% of the GNI of Korea. And we do ODA bilaterally or multilaterally. So it covers a lot of the projects which are related to the climate resilient infrastructure projects. Okay. Now, here private, let's turn to private finance and capital markets here. Actually, when the government leads or governments, according to the government's policy directions, the public financial institutions like Korea Development Bank, KDB, or Korea Exim Bank, Export and Import Bank, which they are public financial banks in Korea, if they lead the way and the private sectors, the private banks or private companies follow. So they follow like here, green loans or green funds, and even institutional investors like National Pension Service, which is one of the biggest pension service in the world, very big size. They follow the rule like ESG for investments in Korea too. Today, in fact, I would like to focus on green bonds. Green bonds, here, as you may know, that green bonds is a very great tool for mobilizing private finance for climate resilient infrastructure. Korea has been issuing green bonds in both public and private sectors so far. Not many cases, but here, as you see here, Korea Development Bank and Korea Exim Bank, which they are the public financial institutions, and issued, like for example, KDB, they issued $300 million recently, last June, and which the bond is limited to the project related to the climate change sector, like green industries or new renewable energy sectors. Kexim and Hyundai Capital is a private sector, but for a purchase of hybrid eco-friendly vehicles. So the usage, when you see the utilization of the funds or the green bonds, not directly linked to the climate resilient adaptation infrastructure issues, but yeah. And so based on these situations in Korea, I'd like to share some ideas of, for discussion topics. Maybe everybody from yesterday trying to find some ways or solutions to move forward. But I feel that we are vague or at a loss what to do and where to go. So just this is kind of for the mobilization of the funds and resources for climate change resilient infrastructures. Green bonds, I mentioned before, green bonds is a very key tool for mobilizing resources. Therefore, we need a policy framework for strengthening incentives for bond issuance, for creating guidelines or monitoring eligible sectors. And so far, China is a kind of leading country, and they released a guideline on green bonds. And France on Nigeria, I think, they even issued sovereign bonds for sovereign green bonds too. So I think the Korea is now, we are very much enthusiastic to issue some more green bonds for this issue. And even I'm thinking about, this is kind of policy making, so we are thinking about issuing internally in Korea. So this is kind of one idea. And the second thing is financial institutions for climate finance. I think there is need for financial institutions that can play a comprehensive role in climate finance. So it could provide a basis for mobilizing and executing domestic and international climate finance, and also enable different management and construction of a statistical system based on MRV. There are many challenges to figuring out for current address of climate finance from public and private sectors. But there is a clear need for an integrated management of green finance with clear standards. GIB, for example, GIB is focused on only the internal development and financial climate change projects, I think, but they are trying to now expand to overseas, internationally. So this idea is one of the idea that even in Korea I am thinking for the policy purposes. And the last thing is GCF is a crucial institution for mobilizing resources for climate resilient infrastructure. One of the aspects of the GCF involves encouraging participation of the private sectors is the division of a private sector facility. Therefore, there needs to be more discussions how to link the private resources with the GCF. And another thing is from yesterday, I felt that capacity building is very important. Actually, GCF emphasizes the direct access from the developing countries. So they provide many programs, and in line with them, Korean government as a host country, we also provide capacity building programs for the developing countries. It's directly or bilaterally or with the help of GCF together. So these kind of efforts we are trying to contribute to this climate change resilient infrastructure for resources. And I'll stop here for the time constraint.
Thank you very much, and round of applause. Yeah, it's very encouraging to see how the Korean government is moving forward and really taking the lead in promoting green finance.